Carl, nearly 21 years ago, you were the managing partner of the Johnnie Cochran firm, which represented O.J. Simpson. This week, FX has a movie coming out about Simpson's murder trial. He was found not guilty for murdering his former wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. What's your take on this movie?
I'm interested to see it, Mike, as anyone would be, given that there's some moment of history in which they were involved. I'm not sure really what the spin is going to be. I fear it's going to be some retread effort to try to justify the outrage of much of America for the verdicts. But I'm going to be watching with interest just to see how close it comes to the actual truth.
What was it like being in that bubble? That was the first major trial. It was trial of the century. That was the tagline. That was the hashtag at the time. What was it like for you being the managing editor or managing partner of the law firm that represented Mr. Simpson?
It was, in short, life transforming. I'm now on my own 20 and a half years later, and I question if I'd have had the confidence to go out on my own and to seek other challenges had it not been for the confidence that was instilled in me following that trial. It was so unusual then. That was, as you say, the first real time when all of America seemed to be transfixed on a particular case. My life was transformed because I became much of a household face, walking through the malls and the stores of Los Angeles on evenings and weekends. And it became very exciting just being in that environment, something that I'll take with me to my grave, I'm sure.
Let's talk about the main players. Obviously, your colleague, the late Johnnie Cochran. What was he like?
He was a tremendously important person and figure in American history. He was my mentor. Other than my mom, probably the one person that had the greatest single influence on my life. Working with him for 12 and a half years was an experience that I'll take to my grave. He was a fascinating man. He was brilliant. He was energetic. He was committed to his community and committed to his fight for justice.
O.J. Simpson, who was now sitting in a prison in Nevada, what was he like?
He was a tremendously intelligent and savvy client. That's what really remains with me now. Probably the most intelligent client that I had ever experienced. He had a particular savvy nature of knowing what plays in front of a jury. If you'll remember, he was able to create an image basically out of whole cloth as an athlete, a Heisman Trophy winner, and a leading rusher. But he was able to carve that into an administrative icon, marketing-wise. So he would always comment to us about how things would play, or how things looked, or how not to present things. I know with me in particular, he would tell me about talking too fast, and about ways to make sure that I could better present his position in front of the judge and the jury as well.
Marcia Clark, prosecutor for the state of California against O.J. Simpson. What was she like?
It's funny because we used to say that Marcia would eat red meat. She was a whiskey drinking, cigarette smoking, trash talking trial lawyer who was fierce. She had a tremendous ability to think well on her feet at the drop of a hat or the turn of a phrase, and she was fearless. She was liked by many of the senior detectives because she could talk trash with them, drink with them, and smoke a cigarette with them. So she was always there, fearless, ready to fight for her side.
The only African American on the prosecuting team, Mr. Simpson, your colleague, Christopher Darden. What was he like?
It's funny because Chris and I go way back. As a district attorney, he was assigned to the division of the department that would investigate officer-involved shootings. Johnnie Cochran's office would often represent victims of officer misconduct. So we dealt together administratively for years before this case. He came on the case in January after a predominantly African American jury had been selected. He wasn't there during jury selection. So when he came on, everyone knew why he was there. Not only because of his own skill set, but because they thought that as a black lawyer, it was important that he be there to speak to the African American jury that we had. We would often rib him about that. We often, talked trash to trial lawyers are gunslingers in a modern day time.
What we remember from this case, though, and this is probably Mr. Darden's largest memory from the case, is the glove demonstration. And the term that Mr. Cochran used in court, open court, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. What was that like, seeing that glove not go on OJ's hand and realizing that Mr. Darden had failed?
It's funny that you ask that, because I was there at the time, seated 2 seats away from OJ. There's a camera in the corner of the courtroom watching everything that's going on. We knew right before that Chris was going to ask that OJ try on the glove. And so Johnnie had come and gave us a warning. Okay, fellas, no reactions. It's about to happen. I'll remember that time as if it were yesterday, because you learned in law school, Michael, never to ask a question on cross-examination that you don't know the answer to. And that concept was multiplied in spades when it came down to a demonstration. So then, when the glove was being tested, no one knew for sure what really happened. And you saw OJ begin to try to slip that glove onto his hand, and it clearly did not fit. And from that point, he went into actor's mode. He stood up. He showed the glove. He's doing all of this gesticulation and gyration because it was clear that that glove did not fit. That was one of the greatest, most anticipated moments in American jurisprudence,